Friday, November 10th, 2017. Dow Jones Index recap. Well, okay, I'm going to talk about a few things here, on more particular on how fraudulent these markets really have become, and the manipulation by the central banks with the private investment banks. They know who they are. It's just becoming really, it's blatantly obvious to most market participants what they're doing. And last night was no different. You can see on the chart, same thing. At one point, the Dow was down, I believe, about 250 points at its low point. And the market manipulators, the central banks, the investment banks, were at it again. They started buying, and this is not. I read, honestly, guys, I read these headlines on the trash business sites, which I've got to be careful not to name, because I know a few others who have named them and their accounts have been pulled on YouTube. But you guys know who they are, and one starts with a C. And they say, oh, this is retail investors buying and everything's very bullish. That's a load of crap. It's the investment banks and the central banks. They've, rigged these markets, and it's evident on what they're doing with the Dow Jones. Now I don't know if this is purely to do with the madman in the White House. He loves using his fat finger to tweet how great the stock market is, and he thinks the stock market is a measurement of the US, how great the US economy is doing, and which is a load of crap. I truly believe, I've spoken to others about this, we truly believe, let's remember, guys, that one of his financial advisors, his economic planners, is a guy by the name of, I believe, Gary Cohen, which is an ex-Goldman Sachs banker. So there we have the connection. So to me it's obvious that orange-haired Trump has put his stamp on this market. He's claimed it as his own, and I believe that he's using certain people he's surrounded by to get the investment banks to prop up these markets. As simple as that. Just like the bond, how they've rigged the bond market. They've been rigging the bond market for 30 or so years. They've been caught rigging the gold market, and they're still doing the rigging of the gold market on the London Metals Exchange. I mean, it's very obvious. And now they're involved in rigging the stock market. And there's no such thing as a free market at the moment. These markets are not free because the market, regardless of what those guys say in those business channels that stocks are not overvalued, that's a load of horse shit. This market, everyone knows this market is very overvalued and it's being propped up. Now, if this was a free market, this should go back to fair value. And so, in other words, this should drop a long way. Now, in saying that, the day of reckoning will come, where these market manipulators, the crooks on Wall Street, I don't know what it'll be. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when they'll get caught with their pants down, and it'll be something big. It'll be another major scandal. And the fraud, because we all know there's a lot of fraud going on in these markets. It's very obvious by this rigging. But they'll get exposed for the fraud and the major scandal, and I believe that will be the trigger to finally see this market sell off in a big way. For me personally, this year's been very frustrating because I called months prior. Some of you guys know I called in August for the market top within a few days, and it got hit, and the cycle was proven valid. And this market from August 8th was going to correct. I had no doubt about that. But, the market manipulators, the riggers, the central banks, the investment banks came in and they stopped it. And in fact, not only did they stop the correction from happening, they pushed the index up another few thousand, 2,000, 3,000 points. Crazy. For those who don't know, there was a website by the name of zerohedge.com, which had some very, very good and informative articles and really exposes the amount of rigging and manipulation that's been going on. They had an article over the weekend from the Swiss National Bank, and it was their updated Q3 holdings. Now, the Swiss National Bank has been buying big US weighted stocks like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing, and it's mainly been those companies that are heavily weighted on the Dow, the Nasdaq, and the S&P that have been driving this market. So their updated Q3 holdings, they bought more of those companies. Their value went from, I believe it was 80 billion and increased to 100 billion. So here's the result of this. That is the amount of manipulation that's going on. For the fraudulent activity is beyond, and the criminal activity is beyond anything I've ever seen in my 30 plus years as a trader. It's even worse than what happened prior to the 2008 GFC and market collapse. Because here we have central banks printing money out of thin air and buying everything up. And they've inflated bubbles beyond, and asset prices beyond extreme valuations. And this is the thing. When is this going to stop? I forecasted this year, and it's looking more and more likely that's not going to occur. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I actually believe that because this has become so out of control with what these central banks and these investment banks are doing, as I said, once the fraud, and something's going to happen, once the fraud and the scandal gets exposed, I just believe that this crash, which will come, will be a lot greater because of the amount of rigging that's going on now. So, in the meantime, to try and short these markets is very difficult. You would have made a few short trades last night, but once again, they're not allowing these markets to self-correct the way they should accordingly. Well, particularly on the Dow and the S&P. So at the moment, guys, we've just got to just see what happens, and something will happen. Some news will get broken. I believe some scandal will come out, and I think that'll be the end of it.